Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. We're here to kind of give our review, share some thoughts, share some takes on Miami's 27-24 win over Notre Dame after rewatching the game and just gathering more information in general on the performance from the Hurricanes. So we'll have a free-flowing conversation about that, as well as just, takes from week one in general with the college football landscape and ACC landscape. And, we'll briefly touch on maybe Bethune-Cookman. I don't think this week we're not going to do like a preview podcast for the Bethune-Cookman game. But we'll touch on them a little bit here in this podcast. So before we dive into things, of course, we got to highlight two of our sponsors. Canes Connection, that of course is Miami's collective. Look, we all saw on Sunday night, it's starting to look a certain way at Miami. That's because of recruiting. Miami is recruiting at a higher level under Mario Cristobal's leadership, particularly at the line of scrimmage. Sunday was a line of scrimmage game, and Miami dominated the line of scrimmage against Notre Dame, who, entered this season believed to be one of the better line of scrimmage teams in the country. So Canes Connection plays a big role in assisting Miami in the talent acquisition space. Go to canesconnection.com and support those guys any way you can.
How about really quick there? How about Darren
Yeah.
Heitner calling Canes Connection the best collective in college football or college sports? So big praise, and I think that's also just comfort and to know to anyone contributing that your money's going to the right place and the people that are handling it the right way. That is big praise from someone who is coast to coast on a ton of different situations and is involved with a bunch of different programs and collectives. And for him to communicate that publicly, I think is a very encouraging sign.
I agree. I mean, look, Miami's collective, Canes Connection, they're buttoned up, they're professional, and they always find a way to help the program however they can help, right? If it's within reach or within their means, they get the job done, whatever that means. So I agree. It's they prefer, I think, to work in the shadows, so to speak, but they are a significant piece to the equation of this Mario Cristobal build, now in year 4 and delivering success. So canesconnection.com. Also want to highlight Musarino Law. If you've been injured in a slip and fall, boating accident, trucking accident, an Uber or Lyft accident, any type of car accident, Nick Musarino is the personal injury attorney you should contact at 561-960-9870 or visit his website at flinjury.law. Was talking with Nick this morning. He was hyped about the performance on Sunday night. He was at the game, and he's definitely excited by the way things are looking, particularly at the line of scrimmage, right? And during our conversation, we both agreed that this team can still hit another level as they improve week to week to week. So we'll get into those thoughts here coming up right now in this podcast as we kind of review the game. But again, go support our guy Nick Musarino at Musarino Law. The way to contact him or visit his website will be in the show notes. All right, Gabby. So again, I just kind of want to have a free-flowing conversation. Notre Dame game. I'll give you the floor first. Where do you want to go with this conversation? What stuck out to you, or what do you want to touch on first here as it relates to this game after watching it again?
Yeah, to me, and I don't know how you feel about this, David, but I'm going to come out the gate hot. I think this team's probably better than I thought. It was impressive.
I agree.
It was really impressive watching. And look, too, that Notre Dame team is very good. Like Miami I think that's a really good Notre Dame team. Very talented. I just thought that it was so impressive. We thought this was the most well-rounded roster that Mario Cristobal had put together. I think watching that game, I'm just like, check, because offensive line performed at a super high level in a highly competitive game where again those I know Mario Cristobal said it, the muddy bloody yards they were hard to come by. The offensive line is built the right way. The defensive line I think probably performed better than I thought that they could. You know, of course, Ruben Bain coming off the injury, he was excellent. Akeem Mesidor was excellent. David Blay was awesome. All three of the defensive tackles I thought made impactful plays. And then just even the secondary, I thought they outperformed Notre Dame, and I know you wrote that earlier in the week, David, but that's how it kind of felt. Like obviously Miami has the more experienced quarterback and all that, but and then everything they did on offense between the three running backs and how that kind of worked out. The receivers I thought performed against again a really really talented secondary.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway, David, is that this team is good. This team is again,
Yeah.
probably better than I thought, and the line of scrimmage play was exceptional. I mean, there were some clips that Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor are just bullying some of those
Yeah.
Notre Dame tackles, and those guys were, to your point, touted as some of the best in the country. Ruben Bain made Anthony Knapp look like a guard sometimes. Like he just put
Yeah.
him out of position and like spun him around. He did the same thing to Emil Wagner. Akeem Mesidor had awesome moments as well. Those two were ultra impressive against again two players who I think everyone thought were kind of like pillars and cornerstones of that Notre Dame front, and that's a good offensive line too now. Like those are good players. I think it just says more about Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, and really the Miami's defensive front and just how impressive that group was.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree with you. Like, I left that game. I mean, you and I were both high on this team. I think it was
Yeah,
pretty clear from our podcast coming into the game. You and I were high on this team, but I agree with you in that I left the game and probably even more so feel this way after rewatching the
right.
game that they're better than I expected. That I thought they could be in game one against a quality opponent right off the bat, because that's a hard game to play in college football because there's no preseason. It's just go against a
Yeah,
top 10 team. And they played a clean game. They won the turnover battle. Very few penalties. I don't like getting into penalty talk, so whatever. But even still, like Miami was penalized. They they didn't commit many penalties for a game one. I thought their tackling was pretty good for a game one. I think their blocking was excellent for a game one. So it was a very clean performance. And I agree with where you were going with the different position groups. So let's go through this exercise. Coming into the game, what were kind of the perceived strengths that maybe Notre Dame would have over Miami, and did it play out that way? Because as you're alluding to, right? I think offensive line, I think most of the country kind of thought that Notre Dame's offense, I think everyone respects Miami's offensive line
for
coming
sure.
into this year. But I think everyone assumed after what Notre Dame did last year that they were going to have the advantage. It did not play out that way at all. Miami's offensive line was significantly better. And on the flip side, defensive line, I think, was kind of viewed coming into the game as like a toss-up-y type of matchup. Like, we'll find out which defensive line is better. And that wasn't even close either. I think their defensive end, like Boubacar Traore,
Yeah, he was the
he
bright
flashed,
spot. Yeah,
right? But like, even he wasn't on the same level as Ruben Bain or Akeem Mesidor.
yeah,
So he was the third best defensive end in the
agreed.
game. And then Miami's three defensive tackles were better than Notre Dame's,
8.
yeah, any of them. So they dominated the line of scrimmage. The secondary, too, like Miami's secondary, frankly, now it's a difference in quarterback, but
Right.
we talked about that going into the game. Like, the biggest advantage Miami had going into this game was quarterback because of the experience. And CJ Carr, I think, was solid. I think there's still, like, I think CJ Carr had a good game. I was, within the context of his first game against a real team, I was impressed by how he performed. I still think we have a lot to learn about CJ Carr because he really wasn't asked to really throw the ball downfield much. So we'll find out what he is as the season progresses. I think there's something there, though. Um, but Miami's secondary, I think, locked it down better than Notre Dame's did. And, you know, so Miami, in my opinion, won that, particularly at corner. They won that matchup. Receiver, I mean, Malachi Tony was better than anything Notre Dame had on the field at that position. Tight end, that's an interesting one because their tight end did have a bunch of drops, but he generated that explosive play on the bust. So I don't know. I guess you give the edge to Notre Dame. Running back, Miami's running backs were better. Like I think Notre Dame's running backs are more talented, but Miami's running backs were better on that day. And so they were just the better team. And frankly, like I don't know if you felt this way, Gabby, but like Notre Dame, they definitely deserve credit for making it a close game, tying it up in the fourth quarter. But there was points in that game where things were really teetering on like, man, is Miami just gonna kind of distance themselves and make this like a three touchdown game and really just kind of put Notre Dame to bed? They never got to that point, and part of that is just the Notre Dame culture and their program that wins ten games a year for the past decade, and so they're gonna fight to stay in a game. Um, but that game, like in terms of like who was the dominant team, who deserved to win that game, Miami deserved to win that game, and I'm with you. I came away thinking we'll get into this later, but thinking, man, this team's better than I expected in terms of just a clean performance. Like it was impressive, and also like this team can go toe to toe. I think now that's different than this team can beat any team, but I think this Miami team can legitimately go toe to toe with any team in the country this year. Like this year, it's wide open. There's not like a
Clear.
crazy dominant clear team.
Right.
I think Miami can. I think Miami can go toe to toe with anyone, and so these are encouraging things. Now, there's a long way to go. We'll get into that here later. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I came away more impressed than I expected to be coming off that game. Let's discuss Carson Beck. Um, because look, man, I think the stats, they're not flashy, right? Like 205 yards, two touchdowns. He did protect the football, which is a significant key to Miami getting that win. But what impressed you most about what Carson showed after rewatching it? Because, it was clear during the game, like he's very comfortable.
Yeah.
The offensive line's given him plenty of time to operate. And when he didn't, when he was pressured, he threw touchdowns. So
Yep.
he showed that playmaking ability as well. But did anything stick out to you about his performance during the rewatch?
I think a few things, and you touched on one of them, kind of just like the playmaking element of just kind of the I think he's maybe a little bit more. I don't know if I want to call him mobile, but just like I don't know, maybe a little bit. This is a bad term, just like the sneaky athletic, just his ability to slide and move and make plays. He extended a couple plays because of the way he kind of slid left and right, and again that kind of playmaking element of it. Like I hadn't. We hadn't watched that from, a Miami perspective. Like we hadn't really seen him do that here. I didn't really know how it was going to go in that regard. But yeah, that playmaking element and his willingness to just be like, hey, I'm going to give my guy a chance to make a play. And the ball's going to be somewhere where, Malachi Tony went and got it and he scored. And CJ Daniels went and got it and scored. And there was another ball where, again, give her critiquing calls or non-calls where Malachi Tony kind of was a little
Yeah,
bit covered and he threw one his way and everyone was kind of looking around waiting for it. They didn't get the call, but
we got a
an
holding call,
opportunity.
right?
Yeah, he threw
Yeah.
that deep ball to down the left side of the field to Keelan Marion that gave him a chance on Christian Gray with a obvious defensive pass interference. Who knows if
That
that's
would
a
have been a
long
touchdown.
touchdown? Yeah, like that could have been a
And
long touchdown.
that's on the last drive
Yeah.
where, look, and we'll talk about this later, but I'm here for the conversation about conservative on the last drive. Were they too conservative? That play happened on the last
Yeah,
drive.
that was a kill shot.
It would have been a touchdown. It would have been game over.
Yeah.
Credit to the Notre Dame Christian Gray. He made the smart play and just pulling down Keelan Murray and
Yeah.
preventing that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Beck was just in full command. Again, I thought he was efficient. I thought he was impactful. He made awesome. I didn't realize Notre Dame was, I think they led the country last year in was it turnover differential or turnover margin.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
Carson Beck, for all the conversation that we heard all off season about how he was a pick machine at Georgia, and you just got to let Carson
Right.
Beck be Carson Beck, and he's gonna make mistakes. He was pretty protectant of the football. Like he didn't. I don't. You might know the stats, David, of just like I know the
There was
PFF has a
zero
stat
turnover worthy
turnover
plays,
worth. Yeah, there you go.
according to
Zero
PFF.
against
So,
again
but
what
there was
some
one
risky
dangerous
balls.
throw.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
couple risky
yeah,
balls. There was a couple risky balls, but that's why I was wondering what the actual number was. I'm surprised it's zero, but he was good, man. And I think that's who we kind of
yeah.
thought he was coming in as far as just like we knew he's the guy that had command of this offense. We felt good about his ability to kind of just make quick decisions and deliver the ball where it needed to be. I think we saw a lot of that. It wasn't flashy in the stat sheet, but considering the football, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, considering the football that we watched on week one with all this quarterback play around the country, give me that Carson Beck performance 10 times out of 10. And it was an efficient way to play football, an efficient way to quarterback, and he played a major role in Miami winning that game.
Yeah, I think we kind of saw the best of not the most productive. I think that's going to come as, you're not playing the best secondary in the country. But I think you saw what the best of Carson Beck can look like when he gets the ball out lightning quick with his decisions. And a guy like a Malachi Tony, like that's the perfect fit for Carson Beck because Malachi Tony gets open very fast, and he's that safety blanket for Carson Beck. So he did that. He found the check downs when necessary too. Like that is one thing. And look, this obviously Cam Ward is a great quarterback, and you want the guy who can execute being aggressive down the field. But it was frustrating at times when teams would really take those looks away and Cam Ward would refuse to check it down. Carson Beck is very willing to check the ball down, let his running backs, and most of the night it was Marty Brown who was the beneficiary of those checkdowns, picking up 7, 8 yards a pop on those little checkdowns, staying ahead of the chains. So that was great. And then, like you're alluding to, he also threw the ball downfield. I did an article where, it kind of did the deep dive on the advanced stats for Carson Beck. And I kept it to the 6 quarterbacks that were a part of the top 10 matchups. So that would be what? Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, Arch Manning, and then Julian Sayin, right? Carson Beck's average depth of target was 9.7 yards past the line of scrimmage, which was something like 21st in the country amongst quarterbacks with at least 20 dropbacks. And he by far had the most of those quarterbacks. I think maybe Cade Klubnik was like 9.1, and then it dropped down to like 6 with Julian Sayin, and then Garrett Nussmeier was like 4 average depth of target of 4 yards. Um, so all that is to say, like Miami was still relatively aggressive with what they were asking to Carson to do in terms of throwing the ball downfield. Also, I went back and looked last year. Now, Notre Dame's missing Xavier Watts, who was an excellent safety last year. He's now moved on to the NFL level. So that is one difference with this secondary, and we'll see if they're still as good as they were last year as a secondary. But last year, there was so Notre Dame played in 16 games last year, right? Including their postseason run. Only 2 quarterbacks threw for at least 60% completion rate against Notre Dame last year. That was Will Howard and that was Gunnar Stockton. And only of those two, only Will Howard had a higher completion percentage than Carson Beck. Also, they played 16 games. I think 10 of those teams didn't throw for at least 200 yards against Notre Dame. Also, so both of Carson Beck's passing touchdowns were explosive touchdowns, and we're just calling this, there's quite a few definitions for explosive plays. We're going to call this 20 yards or better passing plays that went for touchdowns. Notre Dame only allowed 4 of those plays, passing touchdowns of at least 20 yards the whole season last year. No team did multiple. So Miami did 2 in one game. against that excellent secondary. So this is all to say, like, and look, I think it's also fair to point out, Gabby, like Miami kind of shut it down a little bit. A little bit. I think it's a little overstated how much Miami got conservative, quote unquote. They certainly got conservative before the game-winning field goal, but I don't think they necessarily got super conservative in the fourth quarter in general, but they did shut it down a little bit. They throttled down a little bit. And so you do wonder, like, okay, if they just kind of kept doing what they were doing, what would his stats have looked like then? I will say, going back and rewatching the game, Gabby, there was a point, man, I think it was 5 minutes to go in the game or so. Carson Beck is getting pressured. He's got a Notre Dame defender wrapped on him, and he just kind of chucks it to Malachi Tony, um, who has Leonard Moore on him. And the ball luckily was thrown too far for Malachi Tony or Leonard Moore to come down with it. But it was a risky decision and a risky throw. And in some ways, I wonder, like, okay, was after that play, was it just kind of like, all right, let's just try and settle down and win this game. Let's not have any more crazy plays like that. But overall, Carson Beck was excellent. And I think his performance against Notre Dame is a strong indication of what's to come. Um, because these secondaries they're going to face aren't on this level, and the offense is going to click even more. It's so hard in college football to hit the ground running with chemistry and rhythm on offense. And so I think this offense is going to be highly productive in the pass game as well. Also, too, like, how cool was it just hearing on the broadcast, Gabby? Because, in the press box, I don't really listen to the broadcast, so I don't hear these things live. But, like, he's talking about how his time at Miami has helped him fall in love with football again. And that's kind of that fresh start factor of transferring that we talked about, back to ACC Media Day. Like these transfers allow these players to kind of reset, refocus. Cam Ward did that when he came from Washington State, and Carson Beck's doing it now. And it really does look like he's going to use this one season, this opportunity at Miami, to level up his game even more.
100%. I think it's clear that this is an opportunity for Carson Beck, and he's maximized it. And this is clicking to your point too about just this thing kind of clicking early. And everyone was wondering, there was a point this summer where everyone was like, "Oh, is he throwing? Like, does anyone like people were questioning if he was even healthy and if he was available and what this was even going to look like and if he was going to play." And it's like, not only did he get healthy and he was throwing this summer, but even in that short span without spring football, despite arriving in January with the rehab, with everything, this quickly, it's already kind of gelling. So imagine what this looks like as they continue to play together and build on it. Again, I think that this is an awesome opportunity for Carson Beck to, again, just kind of be at a new place. And I think the conversation around Carson Beck got really distorted nationally, I think by a lot of people about just again
Yeah.
what he did wrong, like what was wrong with Carson Beck. But you dive into the deeper picture and there was a lot that just went wrong operationally around him. And I think Carson Beck still is a really good quarterback, and we knew that because he showed it in 2023 when he had kind of the systems to be
He showed it
efficient and
last night
effective.
too.
Yeah, exactly, and he
Like he
showed it on
wins the
Sunday.
debate. He
Right,
wins the
100%.
debate.
Exactly. Like
So
and that's the side that I think we fell on ultimately with this with all of this. It's easy to look at this surface level and pick it apart, but the deeper you dive into it, it's like, okay, wait, let's hold on a second. This wasn't all
yeah,
on Carson Beck, and I think this opportunity to get a fresh start with a coach like Shannon Dawson, who I think is a really good fit for him. They talked a lot about the Todd Monken connection too, right? And that's something we heard early on when he transferred over, that long conversation that Shannon Dawson had with Todd Monken and all the praise that he spewed out for Carson Beck, how he kind of went to bat for him to Miami. And Shannon Dawson and Todd Monken kind of coming from similar principles. Like, I think it's just a great fit, a great opportunity with Shannon Dawson, who I think is just an awesome. I think he's just a really good fit for guys like this, like the Cam Wards and the Carson Becks, just because of
yeah,
his demeanor and the way he kind of goes about everything. Where I feel like Shannon Dawson's kind of like a nice soft place to land because I feel like he's just an easy guy to work with. Um,
Yep.
and I think it was just a great fit, and I think it seems like it's working. I think it's going to continue to work, and I think it's only going to get better because I think the run game's going to get going. Even better as far
Yeah.
as being more explosive, right? Like it was close, but again, that was a really good Notre Dame defense. I think against a lot of other defenses, we see a little bit more from the running game. That's going to only get better.
Yeah.
I think the passing game's only going to continue to get better too, with more guys getting involved, and maybe a little bit more with tight ends, kind of establish a true rotation at receiver, and maybe as JoJo gets more involved and more confident in Josh Moore, Malachi Tony, CJ Daniels. I mean, I feel like this was a confidence. This has to be a confidence game for those guys moving forward. Like CJ Daniels, a guy who didn't score a touchdown at LSU last season, going up and making big play. Malachi Tony kind of getting going. Josh Moore getting opportunities as a true freshman in the first game. Like I think this offense has just
Where are
so
you at?
much.
Where are you at with the receiver group? Because I mean, coming into the game, rightfully
Yeah.
so, right? Like Miami lost its top six pass catchers from last year. It's a huge question mark coming into the game. I think, look, listeners to this podcast could tell as camp progressed and as we got to watch what we got to watch, we were more and more comfortable with how it looked out there. Where are you at now? Like, you know, Malachi Tony, I think is going to be a star, and I think the transition from Restrepo to Tony is going to be fine. CJ
What you've said
Daniels,
before, what you said long before the game on Sunday.
CJ Daniels is very dependable. Um, do you feel like I kind of feel like, look, they lost their top six pass catchers, and overall, it's not going to be an issue this year.
I don't think so either. And again, that was another talking point everyone left to harp on. Oh, they lost all this production. It's like we're in a
Which I
new
think is
era of
fair,
football too. Yeah, yeah. I think we're also in a new era where like there's opportunity to go find solutions. Like you can find answers to this. And he went out and got CJ Daniels, who's a veteran, who again another guy who I think just kind of needed a fresh start after things didn't go the way he expected at LSU. Um, you get a guy like Malachi Tony, a talented receiver with all these guys. Like I thought the receivers performed. Keelan Marion, yeah, that probably would have been a touchdown. I feel like
it
that's
would
the
have been.
question.
That
That's
was a
what we
touchdown,
that was one of the big questions we had about him. Is like, is he going to be able to separate and create
right?
those explosive plays the way that he wanted to? We talked to him at the media day, the Miami media day before fall camp started. He said he wanted to show he was explosive, that he can do things vertically, that he wasn't just a gadget guy. Like if he's going to be doing those things like that, he can create those plays. So feel better about Keelan Marion. All the feedback got from him too. Like people felt like he was making plays and performing not only in the quick game and the short game, but also, in just running the route tree and all that stuff. And yeah, so I mean, I definitely feel better about just a group of pass catchers. I think what they did on Sunday was impressive because that secondary was really good, and I think they put that secondary in some difficult positions. You mentioned the explosive touchdowns; they hadn't given that up all last year. Didn't realize that. I mean, Miami's receivers pushed those guys.
Yeah.
Even Leonard Moore, like C.J. Daniels, I thought performed well against Leonard Moore. That touchdown that he grabbed, it started with a double move that he beat Leonard Moore on that double move, kind of created a window for himself, Carson, and made a play. Like, these guys made the most of these opportunities against talented room.
Let's go to this part of the conversation. Was, rewatching the game or maybe even live when you were taking it in live, was there any player in particular that you were like, man, this player is performing better than I expected in this game? Does anyone stand out to you? One guy that stands out to me like that is Popo Aguirre. I
Yeah,
think, and I still think he's a rotational player, but he was good. Like he
yeah,
made some tackles in space
yeah.
on
Against
the,
Jeremiah
the Notre
Love.
Dame backs. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
He was I didn't know where he fit into the rotation and he played quite a bit, David. You got the snap count on you? I'm not
yeah,
sure what it is, but he seemed like he was on the field quite a bit. And I didn't think he was
he
an
was.
issue. I didn't think he was an issue and he made
He
plays
wasn't.
against Jeremiah Love, in yeah, covering him, like in coverage. Like it was a solid performance from him. If that's your third or your fourth linebacker, like that's a good that's a good situation to be in just based on the way that he played on Sunday. So yeah, I thought that was encouraging. Um, Trying to think of like anyone else in particular. I mean, I feel like we
Artie
knew.
Brown
Yeah, yeah. Artie
for
Brown was
me.
great.
I mean, I thought he was good, but he's legitimately a guy you can lean on, I think,
100%.
against a team like Notre Dame.
Yeah,
He was, I'm stock up on him after Sunday. I would even put like Akeem Mesidor in this conversation as well
yeah.
because he was just awesome as a pass rusher.
That's the
Just
most
as a pass
explosive I've
rusher,
seen him look in his
yeah,
time here at
right.
Miami.
He's healthy. Like
Yeah.
that's what he looks like when he's healthy. And just as a pass rusher, he's as good and maybe even better. Like Ruben Bain's a more well-rounded defensive lineman. But as a pure pass rusher, like some of the stuff Akeem Mesidor was doing against Notre Dame was high level stuff. And like he's a guy that's like 24, 25 years old who has talent. And that's a big advantage when you're going against college offensive linemen that are what, 19, 20, 21.
Knapp is a true
So,
sophomore, right?
right. So,
And that's who he
you
beat
know,
on the final play. Was it Knapp that he beat on the final play? Because he got to the court. He got CJ Carr first. To kind of ice it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he was good.
you know, I think quite a few guys were maybe a little bit. I would put CJ Daniels there too. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I believed more in him as camp progressed. Um, but that play he made, I mean, I don't know if I've seen a
Unbelievable.
better catch in person from a Miami Hurricanes receiver than that. Um, and he's going to produce in this offense. He's a good player. How about maybe on the flip side, just guys that I'll go on this and you can agree or disagree. Guys that I feel like, you know, need to keep improving off of this Notre Dame game. One guy to me, Alex Bauman, like I feel like in the blocking phase at tight end, there's room for improvement there. The flip side of that is like, look, man, Notre Dame's got some 6'7", 280-pound creatures at defensive
Right.
end that he's got to deal with. He's not probably going to see that the rest of the year. So is he going to be fine the rest of the year? Probably. But I think there's room for improvement there. I think Look, I think there was some times where Zechariah Poyser, his tackling was a little inconsistent, but then I felt like at other times, like he was a part of the swarm, and he honestly did a solid job at times coming down the alley and making some tackles. But I feel like there's some room for improvement there. I think you could nitpick Jacoby Thomas in coverage a little bit. He wasn't necessarily bad, but maybe on some of the scramble drill stuff, there's room for improvement there. Of course, the long snapper had his issue on the first field goal. I
Yeah.
think,
Motori on the coverage, like that's a
yeah, you
bad
can't
one
cut
that
him
can't
loose.
can't can't
Yeah,
happen. Um,
right.
so I feel like that's
Just
definitely a situation too.
in general, I think coverage with him is going to be kind of
Uh,
you know,
Up and down.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The
but
part
yeah,
of it
you
with that is
cannot cut a
just
guy
like it's not.
loose.
Yeah, it's just like you can't just get. He was just in no man's land, like eyes caught in the backfield, like that can't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Right.
just like the headhunter mentality too, of just
Right.
like kind of thought the play was breaking down and he was ready to go, but it's like can't just let a guy run behind you for 60 yards either.
Agreed. So, those would be, and look, I think Corey Heatherman said this in his press conference after the game, the day after the game. I do think like setting the edge is something that the defense can be better at. Notre Dame had that big run early on with Jadarian Price hitting the edge and getting inside the 5. I feel like if Notre Dame kind of tested that more, they would have had even more success, but they didn't for some reason. But I think that's an area that Miami needs to clean up as well. And I feel like in general, like this goes to, I think both of us feeling better about this team coming out of the game. I think for the most part, like all these issues are pretty fixable. I think Miami has the ability to address these issues. And there's still areas like I think they have answers for like bumping up their ceiling as well. Uh, you know, in terms of like getting the young guys going. So I like the trajectory of this team. Let's close the book on Notre Dame on this conversation. Thoughts on how Miami handled the fourth quarter and or that last drive in particular? Because look, I'm here for the conversation. I think it's totally fine discussing whether or not Miami was too conservative on that final drive. Um, I will say, just to play devil's advocate, I kind of understand that approach when you're thinking about this game, within the whole context of what's happening, what it is. Like, number one, this is a top 10 matchup, and both these teams are really good. It's game one and a top 10 matchup. I think in college football, every coach in a top 10 matchup approaches those games tight because they don't know what they have in a team in a game one. So I think that's worth recognizing too. Um, Also, just within the context of that game of how it was playing out, like Miami's offensive line was kind of getting that consistent
Yep.
push. Miami's offensive line is the best unit on the team. And so in a way they said like, hey, we're going to put it on our best unit to go win the game. They didn't get it done. They had to settle for a field goal. But I understand that line of thinking too. In addition to like, okay, we're going to get a field goal. They're not going to have timeouts. And then our pass rush is going to get after them, which did play out. That part of
Right.
it did play out
Definitely.
once they hit the field goal. So um, I also think too, like, look, man, when you go back and watch the last drive, they were throwing it downfield on that drive. They were kind of aggressive until they got to field goal range. So it was kind of clear like their approach was like, hey, let's just get this to field goal range and then we'll sit on it, make them burn their timeouts, and we'll kick the field goal. Because I think that drive started off pretty early with like a throw to CJ Daniels for 9 yards. Then there was that Keelan Marion shot down the field that would have been a touchdown with 2:30 remaining in the game. That might have given too much time to Notre Dame, quite frankly, but you never turn down the opportunity to score a touchdown. But that was an aggressive play. It kind of reminded me of like 2 years ago against Notre Dame. Miami did that. They hit the deep shot to Jacoby George. Do you remember that?
Is
And that
that the
iced the
Texas
game
A&M
against
game? I
Texas
think it
A&M.
was.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was in the last minute, two
hmm
minutes, 3 minutes, I don't know. So that was going to hit. Notre Dame corner pulled him down, and it was only a 15-yard pass interference. They also, on that drive, it was a little kind of comeback route, 15 yards downfield to Josh Moore on the next play after the PI.
Yeah.
That corner kind of hooked him to me,
Yeah,
but it was
definitely.
maybe a little, I don't know, maybe
They
it was a
threw it
little
though.
bang
They
bang.
were throwing it.
Right.
Yeah.
They
I
were
mean,
throwing it until field goal range.
of course, which I understand too. And I think just within I think what's also important, you said it just about leaning on that offensive line. I also think just where they're at in the game, so deep into this game where they had just been, they kind of started finding their groove a little bit, especially coming out of the second half. Like early in that third quarter, they ran the ball very successfully on that drive. Like I also think a part of the identity of this team, understanding who this team is and what this program is, they're gonna put it on those guys. And I think they've said it like this, it's on those guys to kind of set the tone, to go kind of lead the way. Like it's not surprising to me that they kind of put it on their backs. And I think there was probably just the mentality too, like we're gonna be able to gut out if we get into a 3rd and 2 situation, like we're gonna be able to go grind out 2 yards if we have to, and go kind of continue moving the chains. It got dicey because you kind of put your new kicker in a situation where you had to hit a 48
Yeah.
yard field goal. I don't think that was on that was the plan. Um, but I get the mentality of just like we're gonna pound this thing, and and sometimes you just got to give credit to Notre Dame because they kind of stepped up on the at the end of that drive, and they put Miami in a tight situation to be like, hey, you got to hit a long field goal right here. If you miss, you're kind of giving us the ball again, no timeouts, but this is it's pretty nice field
Yeah.
position to start a drive. Like, sometimes I think just in the nature of these games, you got to give the other team credit too. But I get why they were just like, we're gonna run the ball because I just think that's who they are. They're a power run team. Like obviously the Shannon Dawson air raid passing principles, but I think they're still a line of scrimmage team, and they're gonna lean on those big dudes to go carve out a couple yards for them. And if it doesn't happen, like thankfully there's a kicker that has a huge leg and he drilled that thing and he would have hit it from way
Yeah,
longer if he had the space to, like if he needed to. I think that's one thing we also learned about this game is that Carter Davis has a massive leg. We'll see how it plays out over the course of a
it's
year,
a
but he can
cannon.
definitely, yeah, he has a big old leg. So we'll see where it goes. They obviously had confidence in him. They lined it up for him, and he drilled it, and that's all she wrote. Defense did a good job of closing things out. But yeah, I get the conversation
Let me ask you
around it, but I
this.
also I also understand the mentality.
If they decided to pass the ball on that third down, it was 3rd and 4, I believe. Who do you think they would have tried to target?
Yeah, Malachi. I think Malachi
So
Tony.
the issue, I agree with you. The issue with that is at that point in the game, Notre Dame was putting Leonard
They're
Moore
more
on
on
Malachi
Malachi.
Tony.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Which, look, best on best, I'm here for that as well. But that's also something to consider
yeah,
in that scenario as well. Also, too, just I think before that set of downs, Miami had to go get a 3rd and 2, right, on that drive. And Marty Brown was kind of short a little bit, and then the pile started happening. And Francis Maui Noah just got in there and pushed Marty Brown by himself across to get the first down. So that was definitely a cool moment for the offensive line in general. Um, Also, too, Gabby, before we close the book on Notre Dame talk, like I think we got to put some respect on Mario Cristobal's name in these early season premiere matchups because he delivers. Going back to, the Ohio State win on the road at Ohio State when he was at Oregon. His first year at Miami, they went on the road at A&M and should have won that game, honestly. They just couldn't score touchdowns in the red zone, but they were the better team. They lost that game by one score, I believe 17-9 or something. Then the next year they dropped 40 something, 48, I think, on Texas
yeah,
A&M. Last year, of course, they dropped 41 at Florida. And then this year they legitimately beat a top 10 team. Like I feel like and you feel the same way, I bet. Like I think this is going to be a nice win on the resume
for sure.
because I think Notre Dame's a college football playoff team.
A thousand
Um,
percent.
so this is by far his best win, I think, since being at Miami.
Yeah,
And he did it in game one. For whatever he does, like he gets his team ready to go in the first month of the season. Now the challenge, as we've hammered this home, right? The challenge is November, like getting this program to handle business in November. But I feel like, and I heard some of this, and look, I get it. Like it's entertainment, and Mario's been branded this way. But some of the Notre Dame pods were just like, well, in a coaching matchup of Mario Cristobal and Marcus Freeman, I'm taking Marcus Freeman all day long. And it's like, okay, I mean, we're gonna do this. If you look at the actual results Mario delivers in these type of games, he actually wins a lot of these games.
yeah. No, it's impressive that he definitely has a team role, and the last 3 years, and it's been against premier brands. Two wins over SEC schools. The one win over Notre Dame. Now going back to Oregon, going into Ohio State, and you mentioned it, David, when you wrote about it, where they were 14 and 13 and a half or 14 and a half point dogs when he took the Ducks to Columbus, and
Right.
I'm pretty sure Miami was a. I was Miami an underdog against. I'm sure Miami was an underdog against A&M when they came over here. I don't remember what the
Yes, they
line
were.
was. I don't remember what
Last
the
year
line
they were a
was.
favorite against Florida
Yeah, probably
by two and a
marginally.
half points. Yeah,
Yeah, they were not a favorite in this one.
right.
So, I mean, Mario Cristobal, he does get these guys ready to play, and it's about taking this thing all the way. But in these types of games, he definitely has the team fired up.
All right, last thing. Does this week one result make you recalibrate how you look at things in terms of, okay, both you and I, uh, you know, projected 10-2 for this year. Are you coming off that after this game? Or are you still kind of like, let's watch the season?
Yeah, I'm kind of just like, let's see where this goes, because I think
We've been
10
in
and
this
2,
position before,
right.
you know?
And 10 and 2 I think is still on the table.
Right.
And we mentioned the scenario like I don't like if it's 10 and 2 with two ACC losses, like to me that's problematic. There's
Yes.
still a couple. I mean, USF, I think, is mo now a more intriguing matchup than maybe we thought. We'll see how they look against Florida this weekend, of course, but and how that'll impact how they are. But I think USF is a more intriguing matchup now. Florida, see what they look like against. They got a couple. They got to play USF and LSU before they play Miami, so see what that looks like. But yeah, I think if you find a way to get into ACC play 4-0. I think at that point maybe I'll check it and say, you know what, I think the expectations need to be different. But right now, I think it's
I don't
still,
think I will. Because look, I think I remember this right, but like last year, you and I, we do mailbags every now and then. And last year, Miami started what, 9-0, right?
yeah,
Not 10-0, 9-0.
9-0.
So they started 9-0. I think we were in November at that point when they were going into the Georgia Tech game. And I remember a lot of the questions being like, all right, David, are you ready to bump up? Because last year I said 10-2. Like, David, are you ready to think this team can go 11-1? And I think at that point I was kind of like, yes, they should be able to go at least 11-1 now. Finish the month of November off at least 3-1, and they didn't do it. So I'm not really
Yeah,
gonna come off my. And it's a long season, is the point.
super long
Like,
season.
can Miami do it? Absolutely. Can Miami go 11-1 or 12-0 this year? Absolutely, they can. It's just hard, and it's a long season,
Yeah,
and a lot of variables are at play with
for
doing
sure.
that. All right, national landscape, ACC landscape. What stuck out to you so far, from just 1 week of games? Anything?
A lot. I mean, I think these week one games, the impact, the premier ones, I think I think again, you can approach these a few different ways, right? Like you can try to just make like big, you know, just major takeaways or try to stamp a team on who they are or what they're not. But again, I think Miami, you said it kind of earlier too, like I think Miami is a team that can compete with any one of these teams that played, watching all I think Miami's has a chance to be a highly competitive team just within this landscape and even watching
What do you think of
Carson.
Clemson?
I don't know. You see, I might fire off some takes that might get me in trouble later, but
Let's
I
hear it.
do. To me, just Clemson's been sort of the same thing that they've been. Like, is Clemson better
They
than
looked
they
like
were?
last year's
They
Clemson,
look
right?
like the same team that they were last. Like, to me, the conversation about Cade Klubnik to me just truthfully doesn't make a ton of sense. And I'm not trying to be a hater. I just feel like he's kind of just been the same quarterback like over the past couple years. Like I don't know how much he doesn't necessarily do anything great to me. Like I think to me he's a good to like above
It's a
average to
good
good
college
college
quarterback.
quarterback. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like people were talking about like first round conversations with Kate Klubnik. Like to me, I just don't see that at all. Um,
Yeah, as a
I think
passer, it's
I think
not
he has
there.
such a long way to go, and I think every time the bullets are flying, you kind of see the same kind of things with Cade Klubnik. Um, I just, they don't have a great run game. Like
Zero run game.
they were hyping up the receiver that they transitioned to running back, and to me that just doesn't compute with me. Like that didn't really make sense. Their defense is good. Like they have a talented defense. Like the Terrell brother, Avion Terrell, like is a really
Yeah,
talented player. Like they got dudes on defense. Wade Wooders, Sammy Brown are both really good players. That defensive front's awesome. Like Clemson is definitely a contender to win the ACC. Like I could see that at the end of the season, but saw some preseason number one type of stuff. Like this thing's wide open, man. Like this season to me is like I don't know who's gonna win this year because
yeah.
this is as unique of a year as I've seen in college football. But to me, Clemson is just another top, probably 10, top 12 team in just the sport right now. And they're very beatable to me. I think the score didn't indicate how badly LSU kind of controlled
I
that
agree.
game. And I thought to me LSU was the most impressive team I watched this weekend, or again just in those Saturday premiere slates that I watched, which was just FSU Bama, obviously, was the Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Clemson. Like to me, I came away most impressed or feeling best about who LSU is right now
Yeah.
because the veteran quarterback and a really good. They did a really good job in the transfer portal, I think. And that defense is super super salty. And I thought they made that Clemson offense kind of just look okay.
Yeah, I think Clemson's offensive line is just kind of okay. And that's going to be a differentiator when they actually play good teams. Like I think Clemson's offensive line is fine against ACC teams, but when they play teams like an LSU or if they play Miami and Charlotte, I think you're going to see that offensive line be an issue. I think it showed up in their, run game. They didn't even really try to run it. Their best running player is their quarterback,
Yeah, it's
Cade
Cade.
Klubnik.
Yep.
But you can't, and they're not going to ask him to do that the whole season. But like, you can't lean on that and win at a high level. So I'm with you, Clemson. We'll see. What do you think about Florida State? Because I'll say, like, look, I'm the first guy to throw shade at Florida State when I can because it's fun and entertaining and all that. But no doubt, like they were real against Alabama. They looked like a real team, and they have an identity. And Thomas Castellanos, man, he backed up his talk,
Yeah,
and credit
he
to
did.
him for that. So they will be they're obviously going to be much improved this year. They're going to be a pesky out for Miami. They're definitely better than I expected. Um, to me, their challenge is number one, staying healthy. I don't think they have much depth. Number two, like, you know, real programs can sustain success with consistent performances. They got up for Alabama. Can they maintain that over the course of a whole year, that level of play and execution? I think that's a fair question to ask, you know, because Thomas Castellanos during his career has been kind of an up and down type of player. And frankly, that program the last 3 years, the roller coaster that they just have with results and, level of play is crazy as well. But no doubt they are an improved team and they are much more dangerous now than I expected pre-Bama. What'd you think of that game?
100%. They were again feisty. They were
Yeah.
definitely better than I thought. That offense is fun, just kind of the
Yeah.
horizontal runs, the jet sweeps, the quarterback runs, obviously, and then when Castellanos needed to deliver a ball downfield, he threw a strike to Squirrel White, down the
Yep.
sideline. So when he has those one-on-one opportunities, he showed that he can make the throws. Look, man, I mean. Castellanos talking the way he talked and then to go out and play the way he did, like, I'm sure he's someone that team is going to play really hard for because I'd imagine any team with a quarterback kind of like that with the chip on their shoulder, you could see a team rally around that guy. And so, I know it seems like Florida State is going to play hard for Thomas Castellanos and who he is. Like, you know, again, that I think there's value to that. Again,
Yeah.
it's,
They
I
kind of remind me of like Georgia Tech. Like Haynes King's a tough quarterback to
mhm,
go against because he's a grinder.
right.
They have that identity as well. Like Georgia Tech's a tough out. I think Florida State is now a tough out. I
Yeah.
think I think Miami's a tough matchup for them, honestly, because Miami just on the line of scrimmage is a different level. But they're still going to be a tough out.
Yeah. Can we talk about Alabama for a second? Because like I want to give
Yeah.
Florida State credit. Like obviously, like they deserve
No,
credit. Like they
yeah.
played very well. But wow, that Alabama team, and I don't know if they're gonna figure it out or
It
what
looked
the
like a
situation
seven and
is.
five team.
That was
Yeah.
that was a shell of what, at least I grew up
It can
watching. I mean,
change
obviously
quickly,
over
man.
the last decade, last 2 decades,
Yeah.
that did not just. It wasn't even like body type wise because they obviously have big players, like they have dudes. It
It was
just didn't.
execution and
And it
care
seemed like,
factor.
yeah, it seemed like
Yeah.
there wasn't even really like an edge. Like that's what it was to me. It didn't even seem like there was a lot of juice. I just seeing Alabama play that way, like that brand of football it was so
Yeah.
confusing. And
Ryan Williams dropping passes.
yeah,
Their O line couldn't block. I mean, it
no, I
was.
mean,
I mean, credit to Florida State, and also
yeah,
like
yeah,
credit to
for
that
sure.
crowd for creating that
Yeah, for
environment. Like
sure.
I do think that played a role in that game as well. Um, but yeah, Bama is not Bama anymore. Like I
No.
think I think we learned that.
Yeah, definitely not. Which was I'm super curious to see how it goes for them. Like seems like they're gonna end up having to go to Keelan Russell at some point because I don't know. Like I feel like that's how Kalen DeBoer gets. the mob off his back because I feel like the people in
Yeah.
Tuscaloosa are not going to be happy if this kind of continues. I don't know what they got coming up or what's next for them. I know they play Georgia in a few weeks. They go to Georgia in a few weeks. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting one for sure. How about Kevin Riley? You saw Kevin Riley
I did see
flashing
that.
flashing some juice for the Tide.
Yeah. Former Miami commit for those that don't know.
Left Miami
Yeah.
at the altar for Alabama at the finish line. But yeah, I feel like he was one of the few bright. Jeremy Bernard balled out. How about our boy Isaiah Horton, one catch for 6 yards in that one? We can move it along now. Just had to throw it in there.
Yeah. That's tough look. That's a tough look.
Tough one.
Um, Look, it is cool that the three programs from the state of Florida are in the top 15. So
Yeah,
Miami's number 5 in the AP, Florida number 13, Florida State number 14. And look, from a Miami perspective, if Miami handles business in these games, that's great for their
yeah.
resume, right?
Because those
So,
teams will still be ranked pretty high. I mean,
and
assume
ultimately, like, yes, I like making fun of Florida State when they're 2-10 and terrible, but ultimately, like, I do prefer it when that game matters. Like
of
that
course.
game needs to matter,
Yeah,
and the recruiting battles need to matter.
yeah,
So I'm here for Florida State being back. Is
yeah.
FSU back?
It's FSU back. We'll find out soon.
Wow,
What is
what
it,
a
October 4th?
what a question.
What a question.
Um, all right. Anything else ACC wise, national wise, you wanted to touch on? Fire off.
I mean, that's kind of what I got.
All right.
USF. How about USF here for the Sunshine State Bulls?
Yeah,
See what it looks like. They got a tough little slate now. It's Boise State, Florida, Miami. That's a tough 3 weeks, but they got something cooking over there. That was an impressive win over Boise State.
it was. All right, so now let's shift to Bethune-Cookman, and we're gonna have this conversation primarily like what we want to see against Bethune-Cookman from a Miami standpoint. Um, kickoffs at 7 o'clock at Hard Rock Stadium. Go support this team. If you're in South Florida, go show them love. 7 o'clock kickoff. I think it's airing on ACC Extra, ESPN Plus, streaming. But go support this team. 41-point favorite, I think Miami is. To me, Gabby, like I'm sure you feel the same way. Like this is an opportunity for Miami to find out what they have in their depth players and, get those guys confidence, get those guys some developmental snaps. And so look, I think that is important to get those guys going as it relates to this team trying to maybe hit another gear in November or December. If like I don't even know. Like, I don't think you need all these players I'm going to name to like hit in November and December, but like you need like two or three of these guys to hit and kind
Hmm.
of push your ceiling up just a little bit more as you're, hopefully making a college football playoff run. So, like to me, man, the guys that I look at this week as like, okay, let's see if these guys go out and produce, have some big games. Jojo Trader, I think it's
Hmm.
it's big for him to go out and ball out. Josh Moore, I think it's big for him to go gain some confidence, ball out. He played early against Notre Dame.
Very. I
Second
think it was
drive.
first. Yeah, I think it was first or second drive.
Yeah.
He caught like an 8 yard pass. I was surprised.
I think Luca Gilbert, you know,
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get worked in and, maybe he can be a November guy that can help them on the line of scrimmage a little bit. Armando Blunt, just from like a making plays perspective, like he's gonna play a lot this year, no matter what. But like, let's see him flash and make some plays. Marquise Lightfoot, same. Dante Simpson, I think, is important. Like,
Right.
he's probably your true DT4. They're playing Armando Blunt there. But like, if one of the top three D tackles goes down, that probably means Dante Simpson's coming up into the rotation more. So it's good to get him. Popo Aguirre, just he flashed a lot against Notre Dame. Let's see it continue. Bobby Pruitt, I think, can be a role player. Like, in an obvious passing situation, you know, maybe you don't want Botori in there. You want Bobby Pruitt in there if you have confidence that he can go do that job. And then the last one for me is Bryce Fitzgerald. I think, I think Bryce Fitzgerald come like mid-November, why can't he be a starter? I think the potential's there. They threw him on the field first or
He's a
second
he's
defensive
like
series.
his first defensive series. Like
Yeah.
it seems to me, David, and I don't know if you caught this. He's like a sub package starter. Like on those third and
Yes.
long situations,
Yes.
He's on the he's
He's
like
the safety.
he's
Yeah.
the safety on those third and long situations. All of them. First series of the game, it was third and long. Bryce Fitzgerald's on the field like 5 minutes into like real time of this
Right.
game being played. So Bryce Fitzgerald has earned himself a sub-package starting role already, which is impressive. We heard of the ball hawking ability and all that he
Hmm.
did there. So yeah, I definitely agree. There are a couple more names I think I would bring to the table too, just because I think that this would be good for the team, not just for this year, but just like long term. Like I think like Kellen Wiley is someone I think they hope
Yeah.
maybe by the later in the season is ready to kind of go. If Akeem Mesidor and Ruben are healthy, I don't think you need to go there. But I think Hayden Lowe is a good guy, would be a good guy to see kind of
Yes.
roll in a game like this against, an FCS team like Bethune-Cookman that Miami's playing. I think it's even important for some of the young corners and young defensive backs like a Jabari Antoine, like to start getting him some game reps. I think that like he's someone that has a chance to play here down the line. Just kind of see what it is there. I think. I think guys like that I would like to see, and even like offensive linemen too. Like I think kind of getting a sense of what SJ Alafatuli looks like at center in a game situation, and
Right.
having to snap the ball in a live setting, in a game that matters. I think is important to kind of just gauge. At this point, and some of those young guys too, even the Samson, we haven't even really talked about like the Samson Okunlola, Matt McCoy thing that
That
they're
was
kind of
cool.
doing. Yeah, I mean, both those guys are getting plenty of snaps. Like I'm wondering, and I don't know if you have a sense for this. Is this like a true competition, or is this just wanting to get both guys in there? Like, I'm curious how that situation kind of plays out long term. Not that this game is like the bar for that, but just kind of came up. But I think so, seeing some of those young offensive linemen for the future, you're probably going to lose all five of the. I mean, at least see probably four of the five guys or four of the six guys that are playing right now. So I think you need to see if there's anything on the roster that you can kind of that you feel good about going into 2026.
Is there anything from like an execution or scheme stand? Like, would you like to see more deep shots to the outside receivers? Would you like to see, I don't
Sure.
know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get, to me, I don't know. I feel like these games are more just about like starters handle your business in the first half.
Right.
Um, just should overwhelm them. Again, what does it look like? Like to me, it's just like if you get a deep shot, I think it's good for like the confidence of that player.
Right.
But like to me, like schematically, that's not just like what I'm like,
Correct.
oh, let's go, we got it. I think it's important for some of those guys for a lot of the reasons you're talking about. Just get those guys confidence and see and get those guys going. And hopefully, it would be encouraging if we saw those things from them. But yeah, I think a lot of those things, like I would love
Stay
to
healthy
see,
is the
yes.
main thing,
Stay healthy,
honestly.
get the starters out of there as soon as you can, and then let the
Yeah.
young kids go. Let the young kids play. And again, yeah, I want to see some explosive plays from, I think a guy like JoJo Trader that would go a long way. And even some of these young receivers, see what you kind of got in them and, for the future, because I think a lot of these guys probably aren't going to play this year, but see what you got with some of those guys.
So FIU beat Bethune-Cookman in week one, 42-9.
Pause
Uh,
up.
pause up. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Just talking a little bit about Bethune-Cookman. I wrote about him today, just like players to know. Quarterback is interesting. He wasn't their starter, but he played the most. Timmy McLean he's a redshirt senior, started his career at USF, then went to UCF, started some games for both those programs. Then last year was at Arkansas State. Didn't start games there, played a little bit. But against FIU, he completed 18 of 28 for 164. Ran for -4 yards, but he's an athletic quarterback that can run and buy time and make plays with his legs. And just in general, Gabby, like looking at their roster, it's a lot of like seniors, redshirt juniors, redshirt seniors. They're definitely an older team, which, those guys have played a lot of football, and you got to respect their competitiveness to keep playing football, their love for the sport, playing at this level as redshirt seniors, right? So, probably one guy that kind of stands out to me as being like honestly kind of talented was their cornerback, Johnny Harris. He's a 6'2", 190-pound corner. He was their top cornerback last year for Bethune. So he's played a lot of football and um, just seems like a pretty good player for this level of football. But overall, they do seem like an older team, and they're going to spread you out. They're going to play a lot of 3 and 4 wide outs and try and spray the ball around with an athletic quarterback. So it'll be interesting. Again, go check out, go watch this team in person if you can. If you're in South Florida, 7 o'clock, Hard Rock Stadium. Uh, Go support the young players that are likely going to get into the game. And we'll get out of here on that note. So appreciate everyone for listening. Appreciate our sponsors. Thank you for reading our content on InsideView.com. And until next time, take care.